Good morning, everybody. It is Friday. I try to do these on Friday mornings because it just makes me excited about Friday. Like, why not have a coffee chat with somebody that you admire, that you can have good conversation with, and have donuts and coffee, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So who am I here with? I'm here with Luis. I like to ask people the existential question of, who is Luis?
Luis is a Chicano from Santa Ana that wanted to be a photographer and is living out his dreams now.
Oh. And this is the beauty. This is the beauty I think that I find in doing this work, and I literally met you at an event like a few months ago, and we just started talking. And one thing led to another, and we just kept talking. We've had other offline coffee conversations, and I think it's really cool that you can like connect with someone and open up to people, and they have amazing life experience, and they tell you things that you're like, I was just telling him that our conversation really was like a pep forward for me, because he's also an entrepreneur, a very successful one, and I'm very happy to have him here. So in that conversation, we talked about a lot of things. And so today we narrowed it down on one topic that I think is going to be really fruitful. And it came because he said it, and that the topic for today is that there's beauty in chaos. Now, Luis has his own background because he does a lot of photography and works with a lot of families and couples. So I'm sure he's seen some stuff. But yeah, I think it's such a great conversation that I think could be really uplifting, and I would love to see your unique lens on what that means. So do you want to kick us off?
Yeah. So I had to look up the definition of chaos before coming
Oh,
here.
love that. You're like,
I was like, I don't want to just make up my own definition.
I love it. Okay, what's the textbook definition?
So it came out to be a complete disorder and confusion, which is exactly what I kind of felt when I first started, trying to work for myself.
I did definitely. I resonate with that as well. Yes, deeply. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I said in our conversation was, that going into business, you kind of have to understand that there's going to be a lot of chaos into it, and what really makes a difference between succeeding in your business and kind of just dragging it along is the type of relationship you build with the chaos. Kind of what you really make out of it and how you really utilize it. Because it's not, as much as you're gonna work and plan, you're not gonna plan out of it. Yeah, something's gonna happen. So essentially that's kind of what our conversation was about, and how I really wanted to kind of elaborate on that. But yeah, so essentially that's kind of starting us off. I've been thinking about it these past couple of days, kind of some points that I've been wanting to hit. I've kind of noticed that the chaos when you're starting your own business, at least for me, it's taken its form in three different fronts. There's the chaos of the business, trying to pick it up, trying to figure out what you need to get clients, and then taxes, and then licensing, and then, so much stuff. So
much fun.
Yeah, so much fun. So that's the one front. The other front is the chaos in your mind, in your head, where you're really struggling with day to day. Trying to convince yourself that this was the right step, and reminding yourself that you don't want to go back to a 9-to-5 again.
But I love what you're saying. This the especially the mind thing, right? Is humans, we're so good at self-sabotage. Like, we're so quick to be like, oh my gosh, like the negativity, because we're reacting to this chaos. And I think I wanted to ask you that when you say the beauty, right? Like, the first thing I think of is like, oh, when people talk about like the silver lining, or, oh, the grass is always greener. But I think the fact that you were talking about this like beauty, it's like there's this sort of embracing and like surrendering to this chaos. Like, I think there's something really special about that. And I think I think a way to get there is the way you just framed it, which was the relationship you have with chaos. Like, I never thought of it like that. I always thought it's like, it's the chaos, but it's like, no, you dance with the chaos. Like, you build a relationship with it. And so how do you do that? Like, how, and what made you think of that? Like, that it is a relationship with chaos? Yeah, let's like...
Yeah, you know, my understanding of creating a relationship with the things around in my life, I don't know how much in depth I want to go into it, but it was something that I learned through God.
Okay, that's okay.
It's new to me, so I'm not used to really talking about God. But it's been like a really big thing on how it's guiding me in my life, and essentially through searching for God, searching for God, I came to an understanding that I had to create relationships with different parts of my life as I do with God as well. So that's how I took that concept and started applying it to everything else in my life.
I think that's beautiful. I think that's beautiful. And in fact, I'm really happy that you bring that up. I don't, obviously whoever I invite, they share what they want. So I appreciate you. If you don't want to go deeper, that's okay. But I appreciate that you shared that, because I think, I don't talk about it too much because it is very personal, but I'm happy to. I'm very much an open book, and my relationship with God has always been there. Like, me being gay was like a very hard thing. Like, talk about chaos, right? It was like, hey, we're gonna make you gay and you're gonna have to figure this out. Like, there's no guide. Like, your family's not gonna wanna be okay with this, and you're gonna have to be okay with this. And through it all, I always talked to God through it. And there were moments where I was upset with him and all this stuff, but I was always constant in like, okay, it's you and me, buddy. Like, we're gonna figure this out. And that has been a constant in my whole life. And even now this year, as like there have been moments that have been challenging, I do turn to him and I talk to him and I pray, and that's something that is very personal for me, because for me, unfortunately, religion, I haven't found quite a religion that can really meet my needs as far as to further that connection. But I'm happy that you're saying that, because that is a big part of a lot of people's lives, and thank you for sharing.
Yeah, and the reason I really don't go into depth with it is because it's very new to me. I've kind of grown up Catholic, and as soon as I turned 18, I was like, I'm not going back to the church.
Not Catholic, peace out.
I'm done. So, being here at 30, I never thought that I would be going back to church. I never thought I would be going back into that way of, just embracing the religion. So it's something very new to me, but that's the reason why I don't go into depth, because it's new to me right now. So, but
you mentioned something really important, I think, though, is that everyone has to find something in their life, whether it's spiritual or it's a habit or something that is going to help them build that relationship with chaos and work through that. Recently, actually, I'm happy that we're talking about this topic, is there have been little spurts in this year with especially starting a new business where it's challenging and it's chaotic. And I think I'm coming to this really awesome space where I'm like, okay, what is this information, this chaos? What is it teaching me? What is it here for? And it's helping me. What I'm doing with it is I'm sort of redirecting this energy, to something that maybe it's there to serve me, right? Whereas I think in the past I've been very like reactive to the chaos. But I think that for me is like a clear distinction of like when you do have a better relationship with understanding this chaos versus kind of saying, oh my gosh, like just looking at it and just, reacting or being afraid of it. That's what I'm coming to learn, is just redirecting it and making it work for me. How do you?
No, I agree with you, and I feel what you're saying. I feel like the way I've able to describe the chaos when it comes to a new business, it's like building a boat from scratch, and then you going full time is I think this boat can make it. Let's set it out to sea.
Yes.
And that's how you know if your boat's gonna sink or not.
Yes.
And the chaos that comes with the new business is it's the storm, it's the uncontrollable waves, it's the rain, it's all of that. And I've learned not to see the chaos and the storm. Let's maybe transition to calling the chaos storm, a storm, right?
Okay.
I've learned not to see the storm as an obstacle, but more like a force of nature. Something that, you know, it's gonna be there regardless if you want it or not. So the way I've started to view chaos and you know, in the business and everything is I start imagining a storm, right? And then with every storm, there's also the eye of the storm. So anytime you feel yourself lost, you really have to go towards the eye of the storm, which is where it's usually clear and there's nothing, right? And that's where you find your peace, you know, your stillness and everything, so that way you can go back to the storm.
How do you find the eye of the storm?
That took me years.
Because I'm like, that sounds like a beautiful place, like to be able to have that. And I don't know if the first thing that came to mind is, I don't know where I heard it from, but this idea of like always having a safe space, an inner safe space for yourself. And it's very conceptual, right? But you have to basically kind of like transform your mind, like go to that place in your mind where you feel like you're imagining literally you're in the storm's happening over here, but there's this little safe like space where there's sunshine or there's flowers, or you know, where it's like this place where it's like you can think more clearly and not be reactive to that. That's what it comes to mind visually. I don't know if that's...
No, that describes the way I approach it. To be honest.
Oh yeah?
The eye of the storm is in us. It's giving us the time to breathe, to reset, because I find it's a pattern. You know, I find myself, if I go a few weeks without resetting, I find myself with all these thoughts. I find myself like just a bunch of ideas just kind of rattling in my head. And it's not until I reach that point that I'm like, okay, today I'm just going to be leisure. I'm just going to do chores. I'm going to do this. I'm going to meditate. The way I kind of reset myself is journaling. I start kind of putting everything out that I have there and just start writing about it. And that's kind of how I do my own resetting.
Love that.
And I feel like that's been the best approach for me. That's been working. It's not trying to be at 100% every single time. It's not trying to, you know, push limits every single day. It's understanding that I have a time period of limits that I can go this long before I have to reset again. So for me, it's like, you know, maybe like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And after I hit that, I start feeling it. I'm like, okay, I need to reset.
Okay.
I need to kind of ground myself again.
I absolutely love that, and I'm gonna ask the question, like, because I do that here, is like, how do you get there? Because a lot of what we are talking about here at Coffee Chats is, it's to help people who maybe aren't even there yet, or may not even know how to even approach that. So, you know, how much of that journey do you want to share today, as far as like, what are some moments where you're like, okay, like how do you basically build that awareness? Because that takes a lot of awareness. I'm happy to share that for me, like the distinction I just showed you right now, where it's like being reactive or being like, what is this trying to teach me? What helped me was honestly therapy. Like I was in therapy year and a half. I ended it this summer. And I'm putting the tools that I learned into place, you know, and I guess for me, I can't, there's no other way to say it, but I'm just like, there's no other option for me. Like I want to be well, you know, I want to be okay. And I want to do a lot of things. And I know that if I don't do take these steps and take care of myself, like I'm not going to be able to reach certain things. Right. That's how I see it for myself, and how I'm able to kind of be self-aware and use the tools. So how is it for you?
Just like how you described it too, you know, we're kind of on par with that. I've been going to therapy since I was 20, so it, you know, on and off for almost 10 years. So
amazing.
That I've had very patient therapists. Let me just say that, and I would like to thank them because I was not like this 10 years ago. And it took me, like my last therapist, she was amazing. She was the one who introduced the idea of peace into my life.
Okay.
Because I didn't understand it. You know, I just came in there wanting to fix something, and I'm just like, yeah, help me fix it. And she's just like, Louise, have you tried breathing? Like, let's do some breathing exercises. And I was like, what are they gonna do? Like, how's that gonna help me?
That would.
And she would be like, no, we need to focus today on breathing. I was like, okay. I was like, all right, whatever.
And look at you today, by the way. We just started, before this interview, we all took a deep breath, and that, I'm gonna start doing that now every interview.
Yeah.
I love that. It's very like centering and yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that I really learned from her, is that she helped me understand how much tension I hold in my body, and how I wasn't used to. I didn't know how to release it. I didn't know how to reset, and you know, I didn't understand what she was trying to teach me until after the therapy. During the therapy, it was like, all right, whatever.
Let's talk about that for a second, though, because I think it's true. I think people think like, oh, like, this isn't doing anything for me, which is fair. Like, everybody has a different experience, but I will say that there are many times where I'm like, yeah, 6 months later, I'm like, you don't realize what kind of imprint that those lessons teach you as you're navigating. And it's not something that you just, one day you're like, you know, they can't, they share what they share because they're being intentional, and then it kind of, what's it called? Then you soak it up, and then you end up using those tools later.
Yeah, and I feel like it's very intentional, because I'm pretty sure she understood that she's not going to be the one teaching me. I'm going to be the one teaching myself, and that's going to look differently. It's going to be at a different pace. And I feel like she just kind of showed me the tools in front of me, and she let me figure it out. And I feel like that was my experience with it. And you know, going back to the conception of therapy, you know, going to a therapist and be like, oh, they're gonna help me fix myself, fix these issues. Like, no, they're not. They're really not. They're gonna help you fix your own issues. And I feel like that's why a lot of the things that I learned in that space came into play, you know, years later. So going back to where I picked that idea of resetting and all that stuff, it really came from being taught, you know, by having that tool passed down to me. And it's been something that I use, you know, throughout my entire life, not just with my business and everything, but, you know, it's like the same way I carry myself now in my own personal life is the same way I approach my work, you know, because it's I feel like as a entrepreneur, you're just integrated, you know, it's all one now. It's all one.
You know, I did some research, and actually being an entrepreneur is actually a good stepping stone or training for being a parent. That's what I learned. I saw some research. Yeah, because I love this topic, because you talk about, like, you know, yes, like being a business owner, it definitely lends itself to these tools, but also it's just like all of life, like, because life will be, you know, can be chaotic, and things can be, you know, turn out not quite how you imagine them, but it's ultimately, isn't it, that's what's going to help you ultimately be more present and just be grateful for what it is that is right in front of you. I want to go back to, you were talking about therapy and how the therapist is like, here are the tools, here's my toolbox, here, take what you want. And I think because I'm always trying to think about what my perception of therapy was before I did therapy, because it's ultimately what is the barrier of, like, reaching out for help and having thought, you know, certain beliefs that you think about therapy. And so looking at the tools, I think some people may think, oh my God, like, that's overwhelming. Like, no, like, they're supposed to do that for me. So I wanted to ask you kind of like at what point in the therapy process were you, or I guess rather, what got you to finally be like, I do need this help? Because I think I'd love to share that with people, because maybe they might feel the same way, or they might question, oh, I don't know, just like something to incite them to just consider it for themselves.
For me, I went into therapy as a 20-year-old because I didn't, how would I say? There's a lot of things I couldn't I couldn't make sense of. There's a lot of things in my life that, I was starting to feel the weight of. And I didn't know what therapy looked like. I just kept hearing about it, like, oh yeah, therapy is going to be helpful, therapy is going to be this. And I was like, all right, well, let's go for it. Actually, I started at Santa College. They have a therapy program for the students there. And
Really?
it's free.
Oh.
Yeah, so I got my therapist from there, and she helped me tremendously. And that essentially was. I feel like most people kind of wait until like everything's about to blow up.
Oh, right here. So
that was me. That was me.
Well, I think there's just so much. One thing I will say is like, I think especially for personalities like myself, where I'm just like go, like let's go, like but again, that has deeper connotations, right? Of like why I was doing that, but you just feel like, oh, this is great. It's almost like I felt like this is what life is. Life is this crazy thing, and that's just how it is. Like, deal with it, Like I didn't realize how meaningful it was to breathe, to slow down, to understand what it truly means to be grateful and being present, because everything was telling me otherwise. Like I just didn't think. I just thought that life was just that way until I started to realize that other people didn't see life that way. Like I remember like my sisters being like, "You look so stressed all the time, this and that," and I thought, well, isn't this is what. This is I'm dancing with the chaos. Like, this is how it goes. But the more and more I started to see the people around me, like, kind of question, like, it does help to have at least people that really care about you, like, to be like, hey, like I think I was quick to be defensive rather than like try to be understanding of like, well, what is it that they see? Like, I've never really thought about it until this is what happens in these conversations. I'm like, oh my God, like, why was I so, like, I wasn't open to their commentary, their comments, because ultimately, as my therapist says, like, the people in your life who really love you, they just want to figure out how to help you, how to be there for you, maybe they don't know how, and so they say certain things, and it's
I feel that something that I learned in Al-Anon was that we all have a blind side, and sometimes your family members can see what's on your blind side, but you can't. So I feel like that's what it's been sounding like to me. Maybe that might be the case. But essentially, kind of going back to, finding the beauty in the chaos.
Yeah.
A lot of us grow up thinking that the way we approach the storm is by fighting it, by resisting it, by trying to go against the waves, and you're like, I'm just gonna get to the end of it. I'm gonna keep crashing the next wave and the next one. And it's not until you stop and you breathe and you're like, how about I just sit here and enjoy the rain? That you really start to see the beauty of it all. You can't control if it's gonna rain today or not. So might as well, go outside and enjoy it. And I feel like that's the point where you really start to see the beauty of it all.
Oh, I'm like getting chills right now. I really think about that time, and I don't think I allowed myself to even see, could there be beauty? It had to be until I realized, like, wow, how unhappy I was that I was like, wait, like, now I can't even like bullshit myself anymore on this, like now I don't even believe it. Like now I'm like, why am I feeling this way? You know what I mean? Like it took that, but I obviously it shouldn't take that, it should be, that's why my hope is that like the more that I work on myself and that I can just live a life and lead by example, right? To be the kind of person that can be more present and more grateful, that hopefully like my nieces and nephews see that in me, and they see like, oh, you don't have to be like, because that's what kids, it's what they see ultimately that shapes the way they're gonna behave, right? Because they're gonna be like, well, that's what the adults in my life were doing, so that's what I'm gonna do, and so I'm trying hard to be the kind of person that they can see and be like, oh yeah, Jackie, like, you know, like me being openly gay, it was like, that's a big part of why I'm doing, you know, want to live openly and happily this way, because I want to show them that it's okay, because, you know, I grew up with a lot of shame, you know. So anyways, that's...
No, I hear you. You want to be a model for them.
Yeah, basically.
And I feel like that's a responsibility, you know, that especially when you're around kids, that you have to understand is that, you know, everything you do and how you hold yourself, you're modeling for the kids. How you handle the stress, how you deal with hard situations, you know, you become that model to them. So it's really nice to hear that you're really doing this because you really want to be, you know, somebody to look up to. So
Yeah.
I feel that.
Yeah, like I'm very good about when they're feeling whatever they're feeling, for me to like, how are you feeling? Like, how is that making you feel? Because, you know, I think you talk about role model, and it's like, I feel like when I was growing up, when I think about role model, I always thought, oh, well, it's the career. Like, it's a role model, like what they did with their career. But like anything else in their life, like how they dealt with, you know, being their human behavior and all that stuff like that, just, I didn't ever thought about it. And so, and therefore, I never really had like a model of like, you know, I grew up with, you know, I was more than my other siblings, I guess. I felt like I had more, I was very expressive of my emotions. I was very, and now I'd like to say I'm more in tune with my emotions versus saying I was very emotional, as I've learned from my therapist. And so I didn't have anyone in my life that I could that was like a role model of like, how do you deal with that? So for example, I'm putting like pieces together, and I'm like, that's why I love telenovelas, because as dramatic as it was, they at least let it out. They let out their tears, they let out their frustration, they didn't just bottle it in. And so I was always like attracted to stories like that, or like soap operas or teen dramas, because it was like, especially Dawson's Creek, yeah, I'm gonna give a shout out, because they were very expressive in their language. Like they could use all these words to express how they were feeling, and I was like, I needed that for myself. And so anyways, I don't even know how now I'm talking about Dawson's Creek. I don't even know how this happened, but yeah, the role model thing. I just feel like it would be cool to see more role models of like, not just from a professional career standpoint, but like how they deal with conflict, how they deal with stress, like seeing more of that sort of inspiration.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I feel like, you know, sometimes the role models end up becoming, or not becoming, our first role models are our parents. Those are our first role models, or the people that we grew up with. And
Yeah.
I'm very grateful that I had, you know, very loving parents. I had very loving uncles and family members and everything. And, you know, maybe I didn't get all the tools that I have now, but they gave me the courage to figure out what I needed to figure out in my life.
Yeah.
And that's something that I really hold onto. I hold in my heart very closely, is understanding that I've healed a lot, and sometimes I you know, I used to struggle having relationships with my family now. You know, it's like, oh my God, like you can start seeing it. You can start seeing all the red flags, and you're just like, ooh. But I struggled with it for the time that I needed to, and so I understood that, you know, now that I've healed, now it's my turn to go to them and teach them what I was taught outside of the family, you know. So kind of talking about role models, it's like, it's my journey has been like, they became my role models. I figured out things that I needed to on my own, and now I'm coming back even closer to their lives to be their role models. You know, so it's not even just about children. It's about like, you know, my mom and my uncle, and it's like becoming their role model. It's like, and how do you do it?
Yes, how do you do it?
With confrontation, tension, conflict. It's kind of creating that space with them to learn how to have conflict, because conflict isn't bad. Having the differences of opinions or viewpoints isn't not bad. What's bad is when you let that hurt the other person, when you're trying to hurt the other person with them. So the way I've been creating these relationships with, like, let's say my mom, right? It's creating that space where I'm kind of modeling how to have a conflict. You know, so sometimes, you know, like my mom's really funny. One time we had a disagreement and we kind of like, you know, we argued, and after the argument, you know, a few days later, she's like doing something, she's passing by, she's like, I'm sorry, and then she just leaves.
I think because their heart is there. The heart is in the right place. The heart is in the right place. It is.
And then, you know, I touched back onto it another day, and I was like, hey, you know, I just want to say that you saying that really meant a lot to me. And I really appreciated it, and I know how much effort it must have taken from you. But I just want to start, I want to create this space where next time you want to say something very, you know, deep to me, you know, I would really like to have it face to face here, you know, not like you doing something then you leave.
Right.
You know, like being very intentional. And she's like, yeah, okay, yeah, I know. And then I'm like, okay. So it's
beautiful.
It's modeling these situations now for, you know, your loved ones and your family, because just like me, you know, they didn't grow up with models. They didn't grow up knowing how to handle these things, and that's where I wanted to kind of go home with that.
I love, that's such a beautiful compliment to what me estaba quejando. No, just kidding. But I think that's a great compliment of like, okay, because a lot of people can probably relate to that. It's like, okay, this is what you're doing to sort of to navigate that reality. And I think what you're doing is you're by modeling, you're also like fostering like what it means to actually have a conversation, when the truth is like there's going to be a lot of difference of opinions, you know, like same with my parents. Like I realize like sometimes the conversations are very one-sided, and so they're not used to someone being like, well, there's another perspective, and like what does that look like? And so I love that you're creating that space for your family. So yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah, it's also not just your nieces and nephews, but our elders that are also in need of that. But you're right. Like ultimately, like the heart is in the right place. They just don't have necessarily the tools. So look at you. So my follow-up question then for this was, because I'm sure many people might feel this way. I've felt this way in the past. Is like sometimes, as the person doing that, facilitating that, or helping with that, sometimes you are going to be in places, even if you've healed, there's going to be times where you still are going to feel a little uncomfortable or like unsure if you want to bring that sort of energy, because it does take a level of vulnerability, but also like strength to be like, okay, I know I'm going to be met with resistance, and it's with my family, you know. So am I like, how do you know when you're in a place to sort of have those confrontations, or you know, have those conversations? What helps you?
Well, to start, I don't plan to have these conversations. It's more like I choose to hold myself in this manner when they happen. So I would say don't go into it with the mindset like, oh, I have to be their model now. I have to teach them now. No, it doesn't work that way.
Okay.
Because then you start taking the role of trying to become their teacher, and it's like, imagine trying to tell your parents that now you're their teacher. Good luck with that.
Good luck with that. They're gonna be like, yeah.
So
okay, that's true.
It's more like a situation by situation case, where that's how you start building. So to answer your question, I guess I want to reframe the question, and I'll kind of ask it in a way where, how do you build that type of space with your somebody you love? You know, how do you build that? And it's through connection. It's through having these moments. It's not all just conflict and resolution. It's knowing how to enjoy the time with them. It's knowing how to have, you know, a coffee with them, and you know, a donut, and sitting down and talking about your day and your week. It's all of that that really you know, you start really fostering the place to have vulnerability and to have difficult conversation, because it takes a lot of trust to have a difficult conversation. So you can't go in there trying to have a difficult conversation if there's, you know, you haven't built that trust yet.
I think that's awesome. I love that. As you were saying it, I was like, oh my God, yes. Like, I think that's truly the beauty in the chaos, the beauty in in relationships is the building of it. And I think part of my question comes from a space, and I always try to feel like I'm speaking for people like, but they're like, but, the but, right? And so I think you started off saying that you're healed, you're healing these things, because I think a lot of the barriers that happen when you want to start building that is like, maybe there's barriers because some people haven't healed, or there's still like unfinished business of how maybe they haven't forgiven that person, right? Or there's something holding them back to being able to be like, what happened, you had your limitations, and now I can, reset and like start building the relationship on different terms. Because I think a lot of us, especially with family, it's like we carry all of what we grew up with, right? And so now as an adult, you are I think we don't really talk about this enough, is like, now as adults, it's like, I think relationships, especially with our parents, are very, they're different. It's a different phase. It's a different space to be in. So I guess my question to you is, how much of that, like, do you have any advice for someone who maybe like is just barely kind of like in the thick of it before they can even start really resetting and building a relationship again?
Go at your own pace.
Okay.
Go at your own pace. Try to see the areas of your heart that are still hurting. Try to really be very kind to yourself when those areas of your heart are touched and they're agitated. It's something that I read in a book called the book is called Hold Me Tight, and the therapist talks about us having raw spots, and whenever those raw spots are touched, we react and we become very irritated because they're unhealed wounds. So don't. So my advice is, don't think about the people you're trying to help. Try to be the person that is I
that
guess
you
like
need
that.
to be.
Yeah, be the person that you need to be for,
that you need
so you
to
can
be.
heal. Be that person for yourself. Sometimes they talk about imagine yourself as a kid, talking to your child self. It's crazy how that works, because one time I felt this wound and I was like, all right, I'm going to talk to my child self, and I was like, where is he? I was like, where is he? And the person that popped out was my 20-year-old self. I was like, oh damn.
Oh.
Like, now I'm talking to my 20-year-old self.
Wow.
So I would say, if you're really trying to heal, don't think about it like as the person you want to become to other people. It's more like, who do you want to become to yourself? How do you want to talk to yourself whenever you're hurting? Do you want to be the person? Do you want to be that voice that you've had in your head this whole entire time? Like, come on, toughen up, let's do it. Or do you want to be the person that you wish you would have had during that time when you were very vulnerable and you were very hurting?
Okay.
And then, it's like, okay, it's okay. You hug yourself, and, you don't actually physically do this. You could, I don't. What I do is I imagine myself hugging my younger self. And that's ultimately, I would say, what's the direction you really need to go before you can even become that person to anybody else.
I love this. I absolutely love this. All of this advice. I love that because some people may see that and they're, if I've learned anything in this process, is how important it is to be intentional, and how everything, anything that is going to serve you or help you, like, yes, it's going to take some effort. It is, like, you having to sit down and like literally like imagine that, like, and do that and do it and build on that, right? And be consistent in those moments that you do that for yourself. Like, that all takes effort and time and dedication and investment in yourself. So for anybody out there who's like, you know what, I'm too busy. I don't have time for that, this and that. Like, I think like sometimes when folks are in that space, it's like, I think, what are you prioritizing then, right? Then it's like, what if you're not going to prioritize how you're feeling and how it's affecting you, then it's like, how can you help yourself, right? But it's the reality. I mean, I think it's part of the human experience is like, I don't know, like a lot of it comes from maybe even fear of going there. Because I will say this, like once you start healing, you are open to for me at least, like, I'm like, oh my God, there's so much to heal and there's so much to process and it can be overwhelming at times. Like one of my friends sent me a funny video from TikTok. I was like, oh, once you start therapy, it's like,
not going back.
There's no going back, And I think I want to talk about that because I think there's a reality in that, and that's true. But I also think that for me, just like I said earlier, it's like, well, there's no going back anyways. It's like, like what my life like therapy wasn't. I wasn't doing myself any favors either, And that's how I can justify it and know like I'm on the right path. Because I feel like because you said it, take at your own pace, But I know like I can look back a year ago and be like, oh my God, like I'm in such a different place. Like, for example, the example I said earlier, like I would have been totally reactive probably a year ago. But now this year I'm like, no, I'm going to redirect this energy. I'm like, it doesn't have to be these like big moments, big things that change, but it's like these things in life that over time, right? If you don't use the right tools, they will crumble, they will tear me apart, And so, ¿me explico?
Oh yeah, I get you. And I feel like kind of tying this to the topic of business.
Yes.
Because I know we talked about a lot of personal stuff. I feel like that's exactly the way I approach my business is prioritizing my own self. Because going back to the beauty of the chaos, like I was mentioning, there's three fronts in my life. There's like the business part, there's my inner chaos, and then there's the chaos around me in my family, personal life. So if you're ever wondering like, how do I grow as a business? How do I do this? How do I, push forward? I think the real question you gotta ask yourself is, how do you heal the chaos in your heart first? Because the calmer you're in your heart, the calmer you're in your mind, the slower you start seeing things around you. So there's no way you can defeat this chaos head forward. You can, but you're gonna end up in the same spot.
Yes.
So I feel like that's really what I really try to advocate for is you're like, oh, how do I become a better business person? How do I become this? I'm like, well, how do you become a better person? Let's start there. Yeah. And I feel like that's really what I want, anybody watching this to take away from that. I resonate with that wholeheartedly. Like I see it the days where I literally do start my day off with me, not like answering emails and not, you know what I mean? Like just really like good morning to myself and like do your morning routine and all that stuff. And you're just like, okay, you ease into your day. My day ends up being very different than when I wake up and I'm just like, okay, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. Like, because I'm giving, it's like wake up with, then my purpose then becomes like being like, the other stuff versus like the purpose is for me, right? I am the vessel, right, of my life. It's kind of like, right, you're the computer, I guess. I don't know. I'm really bad at analogies. Anna's a little better, but it's like you're starting your computer, right? And if it's like you're starting other people's computers or you're starting a microwave first, it's like you need your computer to, warm up and process and all that stuff, and then you can go like, okay, ready to get everything else going. And I think it's hard. It's a hard thing to do, though. I mean, that's why I want to talk about this, because like the reality is I can tell you that, but most people, it's not gonna happen every day, like, because the world is the way that it is. But the more that you practice anything, right, the more that you dedicate, like making sure that you're making those small steps. Because I love that you're saying it's like you have to go at your own pace. Like this is not something that's gonna happen overnight, but gradually, like you start building. I love the word building, because it's like we're all so ready to be like fixed. We're already so ready to be at our goals, but it's like, and I'm not gonna use that. It's a destination. What is it? It's a journey, not the destination. I don't want to use that one. I don't want to use that phrase, because I think it's overused. But I feel like I'm coming in a space of like, no, it's like what am I building?
You know, what am I building with this vessel, with my life, with my relationships? What is it that I'm building? Like, I see you today and I'm like, I have a lot of dreams for us as a partnership. Like, you know, like as I build, I'm like, oh my God, what can I do with Luis? Like, what can we collaborate on? You know, like I'm just excited to like work together and get to know each other, and what are we going to build? And that's the kind of like, that's my energy, is like, okay, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I don't know.
No, I hear you. I use the same terms with my own life too. It's the building. It's you know, it's you said it spot on. You know, it's enjoying the journey. It's understanding that you're not trying to reach a destination or a goal. You know, the fun part of it is enjoying the every step.
Yeah.
Enjoying the bump and you fall down and then get up. You know, and then you take one step and then you fall to the side. You know, it's learning how to walk in different areas of your life. I feel like that's really what it feels like. So, as a business you know, owner and everything, it's understanding that, you know, your business is gonna be spread into different stages. You know, there's year 1, there's year 2, year 3, and then by the time you're in year 5, you're in a completely different space. You know, so that way people can be a little bit easier on themselves. I try to be easy on myself. Sometimes I'm just like, oh, I didn't hit my goals this month, or I didn't do this. And then I have this frustration, and then it's not until I sit down, I'm just like, well, you know, it's fine. I've been pushing hard. You know, there's a reason why I didn't hit my goals this month, is because I focused more on this that came up in my life. You know, I can't be the person that just pushes myself to the side to reach, you know, attain these goals that at the end of the day don't really make me feel better. They just act as validation.
Yeah.
So I get you on that, and I agree 100% with your statement of kind of building yourself up to that. Yeah.
There's an example that I use often, but speaking of chaos, is like, somebody once told me, you're like, you only get one pie, Jackie. So like, you know, imagine a pie chart, right? And a lot of us want to be like, I want to be 80% in my job, 80% in my working out, like, and you're like, whoa, like you only get 100%, like you only get the 100% of the pie. You don't get to layer pies on top of each other. And I think so often we don't realize how true that is. And I always think about that. I always think about my pie. And that allows me to give myself a little grace, where I'm like, yeah, you know what? Like like I said, like I love what you said earlier. You're like, yeah, I can't give something like 100% every day. You know, like it's gonna fluctuate. It's gonna, you know, it's gonna balance. And I grew up not thinking that. I thought, no, it's like 100% this, But have I ever been successful in like 100% everything? No. I think the proof is there. Like, I'm like, yeah, I guess not. And then even when you're trying, it's like, oh my God, like, why are you even doing this? Like, we don't even ask ourselves, like, what are we working towards? Like, why are you working so hard on that? Like, what is it that you really want or you're looking for? I can't help but even talk about like validation, like career validation, like so much of that I wanted. And then I asked myself, like, why? Why was that so important? And same with making sure my family was comfortable with me being gay. It was like them. And like, I was never a part of the equation. And these choices that I was making, like, I never thought about myself. I never thought, well, am I okay with this? Or, well, do I think I'm good enough for the job? Like, do I need that other person to tell me that? Like, do I think that? And so now I find myself on this journey of like, making sure like, right? Like me, like the relationship I have with myself, the confidence I have in myself. And what helps you to kind of build that relationship with yourself?
Oh man.
Because you seem very, from my perspective, I feel like you seem very like confident, and I mean that, like I feel like you're just, I can tell that you've done the work. Like I feel like you're, like I don't know, like you just already shared so much wisdom today. I'm like, can't wait to rehear this.
Well, you hit it spot on. It's about creating a relationship with yourself. You know, most of us live our lives not having that relationship with ourselves. We kind of grew up thinking about others, thinking about, you know, being that person for others to help others, which is beautiful. At the end of the day, you know, it's neglecting yourself. So to answer your question, you know, in a short format.
No, go for it.
how do you create that? What do you like? Learn about yourself. The same way you're so passionate about helping others and putting others forward. Do that with yourself. It's like, for me, I really enjoy I enjoy watching the sunrise.
Okay.
We were talking about that.
Yeah.
And I actually do that in the mornings.
Do you really?
Yeah, I do that in the
So you
morning.
saw it this morning?
Mm-hmm.
What time was it?
When I got out of the bathroom, I saw
Saw
that
it in the
already
window?
rose,
Oh,
and I was
okay,
like,
okay.
"Oh man!" But I look at the this is something that I do. I look at the sunlight. I look at the sunlight and the way it hits my plants, the way it hits like my kitchen, and I actually take pictures of it.
Oh my god.
So every time there's really nice sunlight coming through, and I just really take that, and I enjoy it. Sometimes when I don't take that long in the bathroom, shaving and all that stuff, I get to actually see it from the beginning.
Oh wow.
But I like to kind of just sit down at my table and just really just be
Wow.
be present in that
Wow.
moment.
Wow.
It's be conscious and be present, and that's sometimes all that you really need to do.
I like, as you're talking about it, like I feel it right here, this sense of like, oh my god, like I want to do that, or I want to experience that. And I don't think in my 20s or even my early 30s, like I ever even thought about how much joy that could even give me. Like I'm just like, I don't even, not that I don't know who that person is, I know who that Yaki is, but it's just, isn't that crazy how like transformative, like, I don't know, yeah, I guess I can't think of another word, like how transformative it is to really take a minute to really invest back in yourself and get to really know who you are. Like, I think, I'm really happy that I'm doing it right now in my 30s. Like, I've heard people in their 50s and 60s. Like, it's crazy how, like, it's like, Oprah has this saying where it's like, when you're not confronting things or things are happening, like, you get a little whisper, like, a little whisper. And then it's like yelling at you. You're just like, okay. And I feel like that's what happened to me. I was like, okay, fine. No more whispering. But I relate this back to the beauty of the chaos is like, if we see chaos or the things that are happening around us that we're just like, we don't understand and we're confused by, and we just like go, okay, whatever. Like, you have to have that you have to be aware, you have to have that connection of like, what is this trying to tell me? Like, I think if you don't do that, then the whispers become louder and louder, and then it's you'll lose what it was trying to tell you or redirect you. I don't know.
No, you won't lose it. You won't lose it. I think that's part of the fear. This thing that you lose it. But yeah, just to kind of go back to that, if there's something that you want to start implicating in your life, and you want to start small steps, have a cup of coffee with yourself. Tomorrow morning, how about you have a cup of coffee with Jackie?
Oh.
Have a cup of coffee with Luis.
Oh. And now this cup of coffee by yourself, no phone, right?
No.
Or you're just drinking it?
No, I disconnect from like my phone and everything. I have the sun rising in the direction. Of my
Really?
window.
You're lucky.
Yeah.
Damn.
And I'm just like this. It's kind of going back to those memes where like, I finally understand my grandma why she sits in her porch. And I do now too. I do too.
Oh.
Just being here in this moment in life, and sometimes it sounds might sound a little cheesy, but just even the breaths that I take have so much flavor. Like I can taste the breath that I take, and that's something that it took me a long time to even know how to breathe.
Wow.
But
whoa, I never thought of it like that. Wow.
Yeah, but yeah, I feel like that will be a really nice first big step for you.
I love that. What I know we're closing up here, but what's something that keeps you motivated? What keeps you wanting to sit out there with your coffee and like watch the sunrise? Like what is it that's helped you?
I wouldn't say it's motivation. It's more like what this does for me. Having many of these moments throughout my day, they really help me be calm throughout my day. They really help me. They remind me of really what's important in my life. You know, so sometimes we get lost thinking that, you know, and your RAV4 2024 is actually what I need in my life. And
What
I'm
color?
Just like, yeah, and I'm like,
What color?
Yeah, I'm
Just
like,
kidding.
I gotta work for it. I gotta get to my job.
I mean, but that's a reality, though. Let's talk about it. I mean, the truth is, like, there's going to be moments where you are going to be like, oh, you know, like, I want this, or this is, you know, that's very human, like, of us.
Yes.
So I will say, like, in the same vein, it happens. It's okay.
Yes, and what those moments teach me is that what's more important is having this time with myself. Having this type of peace is actually more important than, you know, trying to having the next new car. You get me? So then, when you have that peace, then you can actually work towards
Yes, there we go. That's the breakthrough.
At a much more calmer manner, where you're not actually sacrificing so much of yourself to obtain that.
That's the trick, though. That's the what is it when there's two forks in the road? Like, I feel like that's the path that people take is usually that, but that takes you back to where you're like, okay, fine, I gotta work on myself then, I guess, you know, because that car's not gonna do that for you, you know, like, but if you are, like, you start here first, that it's like when you'll get the car, you know, it's just like, at what expense, right? Like, you know, you don't want to get the car and then you gotta go back, you gotta drive back and be like, all right, you know, shit, you know, I gotta do this. And I think that's where a lot of us get, that's what happens. And so we're here to say that, because that's the thing is, like, I do believe in my heart of hearts, like, I do believe that it's all possible, but at what price, right? Like, because like I had a job that was great, but I wasn't happy. And so I worked so hard to get an opportunity like this, and I was so unhappy. And so it made me think of that. It's like and that was a big turning point for me. And that, for me, that was a lesson. It was like, that RAV4 can wait, because if you're sacrificing your own well-being and your happiness for that RAV4, for example, like, you're probably not even gonna have the energy to get into the RAV4, you know what I mean? So that it's like, what is the point of all of it? So I love that, absolutely.
Yeah, and prioritizing doesn't mean you have to limit yourself on what you give yourself in this life. It just means that you understand what's more important. You know, so when you prioritize yourself, everything starts coming to you very easily.
We want to thank Luis again for coming today. I was just telling him that I feel like I get these like free therapy sessions when all my guests come, because I've learned so much from you today. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, your story, and leading by example. Like, I can't wait for Anna and I to watch the sunrise together. You gonna make me some good coffee? Yeah. I don't know if you have any parting words for our viewers.
Well, if you've made it this far, thank you.
I love that. Yes, thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to hear us both, and try not to go off track. But you know, it's something that I really try to share and kind of be something for others, and just the way other people have done that for me. So I hope that, you know, in some way it's touched, or it's helped somebody, you know, starting their own business, or trying to think about it, or continuing their own business. So I hope after this you understand that your business starts with you.
Okay, we're gonna have Luis's information in the description. He's a photographer, so if anybody's looking for any kind of photography, whether it's wedding or even branding, everything, right? You're open to it. Mostly weddings, but I'm trying to get
weddings
and
families.
All right. Well, cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.